I wanted to show you what I worked on yesterday. So now I have my form. It's all complete. I'm not going to add any more sculptural elements to it. I'm just going to carve. So my lid became very fantastical. There's lots of wings and beaks, and I sort of discovered, like, you see this bird head with a long beak kind of coming off of it. I'm going to capitalize on that discovery and add some eyeballs, and make it look more like a bird. And then you can see right here that I've started to really carve that raven into the side of it. So I added an eyeball, and I started to carve the beak out and add feathers, and that was really fun to do yesterday. So I think I'll do the same thing. I didn't add to the other side yet, but I'll do the same thing to this raven. And I found a reference photo of a raven, and that's been helping me make that kind of realistic. So this is the image that I've been working from. I chose this because I liked that there were some smooth elements to it, but he seemed a little bit kind of fluffed up in the neck. So let's see. I have to find a way for you guys to see this demo without me hurting my piece. I think I'm gonna have to take this off and tape it somewhere else, like I did yesterday. I kind of came down here yesterday with it. That's a little better. Yeah, so I still can't show you like the side, but I'll work on it a little bit and I'll pick it up and show you. So first thing I did was, I was talking to Ceramics 1 about this. When you're working on a sculpture, there's just different levels of relief, different levels of dimensionality. So we have like a sculpture in the round. Sculpture in the round is this three-dimensional sculpture with height, width, and depth. And then we have a sculpture that has relief on it, which is like the carving and the things that stick out from the main round sculpture. So we have different levels, high, medium, and low, right? So my lid would definitely be high relief, right? Because there's things kind of jetting off of it, and it's very, very dimensional, right? Height, width, and depth. And my raven heads are also high relief, right? There's sculptural element that comes off. But then the carving on the beak and the feathers in the eye, that would be considered kind of medium relief, because there's dimension to it, and it looks like it could be 3D, but it's not completely in the round. And then I have my lower relief, which is, shallower carved marks. And I'm looking for all three of those things in your piece. So I really want to see that you're kind of pushing it and adding that stuff. And to be honest, the carving sometimes takes just as long or longer than the sculpting of your piece. So I might even, depending on how far you get this week, I'm going to assess your pieces on Friday and figure out if I need to give you guys more time. That being said, do your best to finish your form this week with the lid, and then I might give you a little bit more time next week to do the carving and the details, because I want these pieces to turn out really, really strong. Okay, so what I'm doing right now to this beak is I'm just outlining where I'm putting the beak and where I'm going to put the eyeball. I thought because the beak was sort of curved around so much that they looked a little bit more like parrots or toucans, or there's sort of a kind of a whimsical nature to them. A little less raveny, but that's okay. It's a fantastical bird. It doesn't necessarily have to be a realistic raven. It could be a fantastical raven. What you would get if you made it a raven with a toucan or something like that. So I'm kind of doing both sides at once so that I can get the beak lined up. It's sort of the same alignment on both sides. So after I carved into this, I just kind of went at it with my loop tool here. So really taking away big sections. Looking at the contour of the raven, there's sort of a dip where the beak hits the face. So I'm carving into that. And I want you guys to really start thinking about the carving part. What is my relief? What am I trying to add to this? Or what is the texture? I love this loop tool with the kind of a geometric metal ridge. It's kind of like a knife in a sense. It really cuts into the clay and pulls it out quick. So I have to be careful with this, the tip of the beak here. It's very fragile. I don't really want to break it off at this point. I'm looking at my photo, but I'm also looking at the one that I already did because I want them to be somewhat similar. I think this is kind of the fun part. I think I was maybe like a woodworker in my past life or something, because there's something so satisfying about watching these little flakes fall off your piece when you're carving. Make a huge mess. But it's fun. It's good. Get a sort of a similar satisfaction when I'm trimming the bottom of a big vessel, because the wheel is spinning and you're just dropping your tool down like the needle on a record player, and then you're watching that ribbon of clay just fly off your piece. So fun. I'm so sad for you guys that you aren't throwing right now on the wheel. Especially considering we got 2 brand new potter's wheels last year that we haven't even really used. Frustrating. But you guys are just going to become stronger sculptors this year. And maybe some of you are relieved that you don't have to throw, because I know there's a certain amount of anxiety that some students have about learning how to throw on the wheel. It's not easy. It's amazing once you figure it out, but it's not easy. All right, so I've got the general shape kind of carved out. Let me hold it up so you can see it, the silhouette better. So now I'm gonna dig that socket out and put the eyeball in on both sides. So I'm gonna use this loop tool. I'm wondering, can you guys see okay? I'm looking at my QuickTime video, but I want to make sure you can see. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Okay. So now I'm going to take this loop tool and I'm going to just dig it into the eye socket. And I'm going to add the eyeball with wet clay. So I need to create the socket to put it in. Bird eyes are really fun to draw and sculpt. You know, it's not just the socket and the eye and the socket. There's dips. You know, he has a brow ridge, and he has a little dip like next to his eye. If you look at Sophia, if you look at your bird, you can see it. You can see all those little contours of their face. So I'm trying to carve those in right here. I moved his eye, so I have to move this one up. All right, so I'm almost out of time. I need to publish your checkouts, but I'm going to show you how to add that eyeball before I have to go. So I'm going to make both eyeballs at the same time so they're the same size. Make sure they fit in that socket okay and they're not too big. And maybe compare it to the other side too so that they both look similar. And then I'm going to score the inside of the socket. And then I'm going to score the eyeball wherever I think it's going to touch the inside of the socket. Use my paintbrush with water. Hydrate both sides. See if you can see this here. I'm going to just pop that little eyeball right in there. And then I'm going to definitely take my tool and attach. And then while I'm attaching, I can kind of create that. There's a little ring around bird eyes that have like little dots in them. And you can create that texture maybe with your needle tool. We just go through and just boop, 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 boop. And then you see this in a lot of Greek sculpture. You know, this little hole in the eye is actually sort of representative not of the pupil, and sometimes in some cases it is, but also of the reflection, the white reflection in the eye that a visual artist puts there to make that eye look alive. So that's what I'm using it for. It just kind of gives them a little life there all of a sudden. Okay, so that's all I have time for today. I'm going to continue to work on this and show you. And then on Friday, I'm actually cut out a lid. I'm going to cut this out. And then I'm going to put a flange, pull it off my piece, and then put a flange, which is that little cuff that fits inside the sculpture to hold the lid in place if I were to kind of slide it around. And then I'll do a lot. I'm going to add like a bird eye to these parts, and then make this look more like a bird. And I'm going to make this one look more like a bee, and do a lot more texturizing, high, medium, and low relief. Okay, so ceramic